I do. I handed out this morning the most recent cases I could find and reported in the judicial system where a member of the General Assembly was indicted and for bribery. Luckily for us, the most recent one that I could see or find was 1912. Most of you who are my age will remember a member of the Senate being indicted for extortion under the Hobbs Act in Cleveland in 1992. That was not an allegation of bribery. It was allegedly shaking down grocers in order to aid with state permits. So by my count, probably subject to further research by you all that is broader than what I can do in the legal arena, at least as I say, luckily for us, the last indictment for bribery I could find was 1912. So with that, Ed Hanko from the FBI.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Ron O'Brien and the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office for being such good partners in this investigation. This typifies what can be done when federal resources and state resources are utilized to come to an excellent conclusion in an investigation. The citizens of Ohio deserve and are expected good governance from their elected officials. The FBI has a top priority of conducting investigations of those officials who information leads do not lead to that good governance. And we will continue to utilize that as a priority investigation going forward. We've had some great successes in this case. Again, the investigators did an excellent job, and we are very, very happy to see this come to the fruition that it did. Thank you.
Eric Croyle, I don't know if Eric has any...
Just briefly, I just add, for the approximate year and a half of this investigation, several FBI agents have been involved in this. They've done an excellent job. They've been very patient. They've worked tirelessly. They've worked long hours. And I'd like to thank them for their hard work. It makes my job easier. I want to have competent people actually doing the investigations. And again, I'd also like to thank Ron O'Brien for stepping into this and leading it forward when the evidence led towards the violation of the state charges. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I think we'd all be happy understanding it's a pending criminal case and that I am limited on things that I can say. I have found, even though we work regularly with the FBI, I've never had a chance to know and understand the many rules that they operate under that are beyond the scope of what I generally consider in addressing public matters. So I think to the extent that they are able to answer any questions, they're happy to do so.
Agent Hanko, could you tell us, bribery is a two-way street, so who was it, or what group was it, or what individual was it who allegedly offered this money and vacation and so forth?
Well, I think it's readily apparent in both the press release and maybe the indictment that this was a long-term undercover case and that it was agents of the FBI who actually offered the bribes, provided the trips to Weddington.
Can you say what the FBI, what were you posing as? What kind of an organization, or what were you asking for?
I will say this, that it was a business entity. I don't want to get into the specifics of that, as we are in the indictment phase and we have not gone to trial, or a plea agreement is not completed, so I will not comment on that. But suffice it to say that it was a business entity who would benefit from certain legislation being proposed.
Why did it start, and why did it take so long?
Well, public corruption investigations do take a long time. There's lots of evidence that needs to be obtained prior to charging. It started in March of 2010 based on various source information, and from that time forward the investigation continued to its fruition. It was probably done, the investigative aspect, in December of this year, well, 2011.
Can you speak to what legislation he did introduce? Did it bill number, or can you say whether it actually got introduced or whether he just drafted it?
At this point, I don't want to comment on that.
What made you...
I might parenthetically throw in, for what it's worth, it was important, both the FBI and our office, that actually had not reached a stage where legislation is introduced. I think there are legal issues that surround investigations such as this, some of which touch upon the speech and debate clause in both the United States and the Ohio Constitution, as well as good government. And I will have found in similar corruption investigation within the court system, we have concerns or problems with actually filing a phony case and bringing a phony case before the court. And similarly, I think law enforcement officials did not want to see, and the investigation was structured so as to avoid a piece of what we knew to be phony legislation actually introduced into the General Assembly. So for that reason, I would follow up and say that an actual piece of numbered legislation was not in fact introduced, and the reason for that was to avoid what is believed something that should be avoided in the conduct of these kind of investigations.
But you did let him appear on the ballot.
He did appear on the ballot last
week. You didn't
Tuesday.
make this announcement last week or the week before.
Right.
Why was that? Why?
As you know, ballots are printed far in advance of the day the primary is held on March 6th, and at least by my calculation, that was a matter that was discussed and of a concern, but this investigation was not at a stage prior to the ballots going to the printer that the enforcement officials involved felt was sufficient in order to stop that from occurring. So I guess the answer is when we reached a point in the investigation where we thought we had sufficient evidence, all steps would have been taken to prevent that, but we hadn't reached that at the time that the ballot went to the printer.
What made you think that Mr. Weddington might accept this kind of bribe in this kind of a sting? What happened in the past that led you to set this whole thing up with him?
I think that I don't want to talk about specific evidence or details. I can't do that, but the general law and the conduct of stings of this nature, and at least Mr. Hanko can talk about FBI rules and regulations, or perhaps he can't, but at least government officials don't offer those opportunities to someone unless they have advance basis to conclude that they would be accepted, that there's sufficient information to believe the person's predisposed to commit the offense. And it's part of actually the law of entrapment on predisposition is one factor, but more importantly, I think there are regulations that you don't just go trolling unless you have a basis to go trolling, and that basis existed in this case, I would say.
Did the payday loan dispute of 2 or 3 years ago, can you tell us if that led to this?
I think I let Mr. Hanko, I was not involved at that stage.
To answer that question, so to predicate or to see if someone is predisposed for this type of activity, information needs to come in from many sources, sources that may have first-hand knowledge, second-hand knowledge, and in fact, even that article that was printed by Mr. Siegel would be another source of general information. I don't think you could find a good FBI agent will always read all the media and everything that's out there when you're going forward into a case, whether it's pro or negative.
The idea is that and other things led you to believe that Mr. Weddington was, as you put it, predisposed.
It was a totality of that information, yes.